Okay, hi everybody. Hello, good evening. Welcome to this Q&A hosted by the Cleft, Lip and Palate Association on the subject of recovery from surgery. Quite an interesting one tonight. Open to everyone, of course, in the CLAPA community. Thank you to our funders, the National Lottery Community Fund and Smile Train, of course, for enabling this event to happen tonight. So a quick introduction. My name is Sabrina. I'll be the chair for this evening, so you'll hear a lot from me. So apologies from that. But I am here to also kind of give my story and background as I was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate, and I've been volunteering with the CLAPA team actually for 10 years now. So I'm going to hand you over to who else I'm joined with. So today I'm joined with Michelle. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I've got a son who's 2 and he was born with bilateral cleft lip and palate. I've been a volunteer for about 6 months and I love it.
Amazing. Thank you, Michelle. So we'd also like to welcome a few guests that we have with us today. We have Louise Hall, clinical nurse specialist from Alder Hey, and Patricia Morrison, consultant plastic surgeon from Great Ormond Street Hospital, who will also be answering your questions. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Louise. Kay, Patricia, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, my name's Louise. I'm the lead nurse for the North Wales and Isle of Man cleft lip and palate team. I've been with the team for about 12 years now. Before that, I worked on the cleft ward at Alder Hey for 17 years. And I've also been volunteering since 2012 with the Northern Cleft Foundation. And I've been the managing the ward, the post-op ward in India for 10 years and in Vietnam last year was Vietnam. No, last year Vietnam. Yeah.
Amazing. Patricia.
Hi, yeah, so I'm my background is as a plastic surgeon specialising in cleft lip and palate treatment, and I worked for a while in the West Midlands as a consultant, and now I'm in London.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. I think Kate couldn't make it actually, so I'll just make a note on that. But we are also looking forward to hearing from 2 volunteers, Kate, who is a parent of a child born with a cleft, and Lucy, who is a young adult who was born with a cleft, who will be sharing some of their cleft journey with us later on in this Q&A. Another thank you as well is to everyone who has submitted a question in advance. We've had many that have come in, and we'll try, of course, to answer as many as we can. If you do have any questions whilst watching, please do pop them in the comments, and someone from CLAPA will either respond or directly pass it on to us to respond to you tonight. So like I said, we've had a lot of interest on this topic, and we'll do our very best to answer everything. Obviously, we do have a small time scale here. However, if there are any questions that we don't get around to answering, then we will try and get back to you in the chat feature after the event. Right, so I guess we better start this with the questions. So we will be working through the questions in order of cleft journey. Therefore, we're starting with the questions about repair, surgeries, and working our way through to questions around surgeries into adulthood. Okay, so on to our first question. This is open to anyone really. So is it true that babies often suffer with night terrors after surgery? And if so, how would you recommend to best support them with these?
Okay, shall I start?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so we do get a lot of reports from parents, particularly after the palate repair, of babies being unsettled and waking in the night for a couple of weeks, up to a couple of weeks, and they're waking not particularly because they're hungry or in pain. So if you know them things are managed, they often just want that reassurance of a cuddle and to know that you're there. So we don't know whether it's night terror or not. We just hear that, a lot of them can be unsettled. But it can last a couple of weeks. So I think be prepared for that. Don't know if anyone else has got any experience of that, Michelle or Kate.
Yeah, I think Reese did. It was for about 8 weeks or so. He would wake up and just want to cuddle, just to reassure it, which I quite enjoyed the cuddle. But it wasn't pain or wanting food. It was more, I just want to know you're there, Mum. Which if I went through surgery as well, I think I would want a little cuddle to let you know that it will be all right. But he's absolutely fine now, and he got over that very quickly, and they are very resilient.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so this
agree.
question is, how do we help to keep babies' hands out of their mouth after palate surgery?
So, oh, me again. We recommend. I mean, some units will use arm splints, but we don't use them anymore. We just say by the baby grows that you can pull the hands over them, to stop them. And if they are wanting to put their fingers in the mouth, it does help stop them. Or just putting socks on the hands. Socks tend to be better than mittens because they're a bit tight around the wrist. If you can keep them on, and even if you can keep them on for a couple of days, and try and protect it. If you can't, I'd probably just say keep their nails short and keep their hands clean.
Yeah,
But that's what we do
I
in the Northwest. So I can't. Other units I know do use the splints as well.
yeah, I think I was actually born with I had the splints in my hands actually when I was born.
Yeah.
I think as a surgeon, I would say just as a parent, you shouldn't be worrying too much about that. There's no evidence that babies cause any harm to their palate repairs afterwards. So there's really good randomized controlled trials that show that splints are unnecessary. And I don't think, I wouldn't have thought that many places in the UK would use them anymore, but clearly some still do. I think the suggestion of socks on their hands or baby grows over the extend over their hands is a good idea. You just maybe want to make sure that they don't get hold of a sharp metal toy or something and poke that in. The only time I've ever had a problem with a post-op trauma to a palate was a child who was in an electronic bouncer.
Oh.
And they managed to get their finger in their mouth and were being bounced quite a lot in their electronic bouncer. And I think if you just do sensible things, there's not really any chance of the child traumatizing their repair, and don't worry too much about it.
Thank you, guys. That was really interesting. Particularly as someone obviously who has gone through this, I don't remember that stage, of course, but I do have photos of myself in the splints, and they look quite scary actually from I guess a later point of view, especially when my parents were taking me out in Tesco. I think a lot of people were looking at the baby like, my goodness, what have they done to the child? Which is understandable because they don't understand if they don't know what you've been through. So on to the next question now, and it's regarding food. So I don't know who will be easier to answer here. Maybe Louise, maybe. So are there any particular foods they should eat or avoid after palate surgery?
We recommend obviously nothing sharp or crispy. We obviously not toast, crisps, biscuits, the melting wafers and the puffs, things like that. And we find that breads can be quite dry if it's not covered in anything, can be quite dry and maybe stick to the palate. So we tend to avoid that for at least the first week. And we also, I don't know about other units around the UK, but we would avoid peas and beans and sweet corn for the shells, just in case they got stuck up there.
Would there be any suggestions of what
so
possibly?
Things like porridge, Weetabix, yogurts, soft fruit and veg. It doesn't have to be pureed. It can just be soft, mashed up, or stuff finger foods like bananas, like soft banana that they could hold. Soft pastas and sauce, scrambled egg, boiled egg, mashed potato, that kind of thing. So it doesn't have to be pureed, but I say every unit might be slightly different. So do check with your nurse specialist before surgery.
So exactly. Check with your nurse specialist, but something that's not going to be hard and crunchy or excessively sticky and dry. So something that's got lots of sauce with it.
Yeah, maybe some slow cooker recipes, something very slow.
Yeah. We would always say give some water after the food as well, just to give the mouth a clean afterwards.
Yeah, that's what I did with Reese, and he just loved anything cold. I think it more soothed it more. So yogurt was a big big hit for Ruth. The next question is, how do we know if my baby's palate is healing as it should?
Yeah, I would say that again, you'll be guided by a cleft nurse specialist, and I would encourage you not to be worrying about that, not to be looking and trying to interpret something that will look really difficult to interpret. So, don't take it to your GP because they will not really know what they're looking at. If you have a question, maybe send a photo of it to your cleft nurse specialist. But if you're going to get any breakdown, that will usually happen in the first 7 to 10 days. And probably what you'll get is a little bit of food or liquid coming through into the nose. But even if that happens, there's nothing to do. You can't rush back in and operate. So I would say that, I know you worry about it healing, but there's not really anything you can do apart from feed your child sensibly and keep them pain-free.
Mm-hmm. And Louise, anything to add to that, or?
Only we see our babies within a week of surgery at home, so we'll be having a look. And like Tricia said, the GPs tend to they're not sure what they're looking at. So you might see a bit of white, yellow, sluffy material in the mouth, and that's okay. That's healing. But it's if you're getting a really bad smell, baby's got a temperature. Our surgeon, again, it's different throughout the country, but our surgeons will probably want some antibiotics, so we can liaise with the GP. But say speak to your cleft nose specialist.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be checkups as well in between. So yeah, that sounds great.
I think most patients come back, certainly in the Northwest, they come back at 6 to 8 weeks to see the surgeon to check that everything's healed, hopefully.
Yeah, which is helpful for sure. The next question, I believe, is from a mum asking, my little boy is due to have his cleft and palate repair surgery next month. He doesn't have a dummy, and I can only really settle him with his bottle. Should I be worrying about whether he will take the bottle or not after surgery? Worried because that's how he gets to sleep, etc. for now. Thank you.
I mean, it's a good thing he probably doesn't have a dummy, I would say, because they are an infection risk. Lots of babies go off their bottle after surgery. I don't think I would want a bottle in my mouth particularly at first. You might find they take small amounts but more regular. And I also think they need to learn that suck, swallow, breathe again, so get their confidence as well. So small and often is good. But there are other ways of getting the milk in. So we tend to use spoon feeding or milk via a syringe, or usually they're weaned by that point anyway. So you can put lots of milk in the porridge or Weetabix, yogurts and foods like that have fluids in. And we would let our babies go home. If they're taking half their usual amount and they're on the way up, they'll be allowed to go home, and then we do see them at home. And then each day you should find that they're taking a little bit more and a little bit more. They're getting a bit more confident.
Yeah.
There are some babies I've come across who never go back on the bottle. But if that's around, well, depending on what age you're having your surgery, it might be a good time to transfer to a cup anyway. And we do start with the cups around 6 months anyway, trying to get them used to a free flow cup. You can just buy the Tommy Tippy ones, or there's numerous makes of cups out there. If you get them used to that, rather than take a bottle after surgery, they're in control, and if they're really not wanting the bottle, they might take the fluids better from a cup.
Okay, so the next question is, how long can we expect tube weaning to be for a 13-month-old post-palate repair that has been on an NG tube since birth, very wide cleft of a hard and soft palate, and never been able to use bottles?
I think whoever's asking that question really needs to ask their own cleft team, because we don't know the background to that. And that seems odd to me that somebody's, as Louise was saying, you'd usually be weaning a cleft child at even earlier than the normal WHO standard, about 4.5, 5 months of age sometimes. So it seems odd to be, there must be a reason that they're still NG fed and that they're not feeding. So I think I would steer away from giving an answer to that because I don't know the background.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. We'll move on to the next question then. What should we do to encourage the scar to heal well? Is there any way to prevent hypertrophic scarring? I believe I said that right.
Yeah, as a plastic surgeon who did a bit of research in burn scarring and hypertrophic and keloid scarring, it's highly correlated with your genetic background. So there are things that you can do that can help, but if you're genetically predisposed to poor scarring, then you can't stop that happening necessarily. But what I would say is it's very, very rare to have hypertrophic or keloid scarring on the lip. It virtually never happens. So it's, I would say, again, your cleft nurse is going to keep you correct on this in the early management of the wound and keeping it clean and moisturized, making sure that your stitches are either taken out in a timely way, or if they're dissolvable ones, that they dissolve in a timely way. And then at some point, probably somewhere around about 2 weeks or so after the stitches are dissolved, you'd start on a course of moisturizing and massaging. And moisturizing and massaging is probably all that anyone ever really needs. There are things like silicone gel ointments that you can use, but I would always use that as an add-on. Don't use it instead, because moisturizing, massaging is still very helpful. But there's no real proof that either of these things make a difference to the long-term outcome of a scar. They probably just mature it a little quicker than it would do otherwise. There's maybe an argument that you can desensitize the little nerve endings in a scar by moisturizing and massaging, so that could be helpful in itself. But yeah, just the simple things that your cleft team are going to tell you to do are the things that will help. And then time as well. Scars look their worst at about 3 months after surgery. They get red and angry and shorten quite quickly in those first 3 months, and then they gradually soften and stretch and lengthen over another year to 18 months. So they get bad quickly and they get better very slowly.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely speak from experience a bit later on. Obviously, as a baby, I don't know how my parents dealt with that, but I definitely did try my best to put some ointments on and some massage when I felt that it wasn't too sore anymore and just less scabby as well. Try not to pick the scabs. That's something that I would try to advise, just because it doesn't help picking the scab away as well. And obviously you're not eating as nutritiously as you usually would, so if you can try and pack some vegetables, soft vegetables into food, I think nutrition really helps as well with the scarring process, healing. That's my personal experience.
and I suppose the other final thing, I'm sure Louise would probably back me up on this, even in our climate, in the summer, if you have sun exposure on an immature scar, it can pigment irregularly, and that pigmentation can stay. So your cleft nurse specialist will also be advising you about using sunblock and a hat and staying out of bright sunlight as part of your scar management in the early phase until it's fully matured.
Yeah, SPF 50 all the way, every day.
Yeah, but we should be saying that for any baby.
Yeah, I know.
The next question is, at what point are parents allowed to be with their children after surgery? I've heard that they can't be with them whilst they come around after surgery. If this is true, do you know why this is the case?
I can't speak for every unit in the country, but I've worked in Newcastle, Manchester, London, Birmingham, now London again. Everywhere I've been, we would always, or our anaesthetists would get the parents to come in the moment that the recovery staff are happy that the child is ventilating comfortably. So the tube is out, they're They're not needing much in the way of extra oxygen because they will settle so much better in their parents' arms, plus or minus offering them a bottle as well or a little bit of food. So I would say that most units would actually want you to come to recovery.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the same about Alder Hey, really. I mean, the nurses love giving them a cuddle in recovery, but obviously, yeah, mum and dad are the best people. We would only probably allow one parent into recovery, just because of the space. But yeah, as soon as babies are waking up and safe, yeah, you'd be getting called to go down and give them a cuddle.
Thank you. Can I just take this opportunity to share that we're hosting a separate event for preparing for surgery for parents and carers of babies born with cleft. And that's on Monday, the 24th of June. And we'll pop a link in the chat, or you can find the information on the CLAPA website. And now we're going to take a short break for some questions so you can have a drink. And we're going to hand over to the lovely Kate, who's going to share her personal story with you all.
Thank you, ladies. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Is the microphone working? Lovely.
Perfect.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Kate and I am the parent of a child born with a cleft. My beautiful boy, Harry, was born at 34 weeks with a unilateral cleft lip. It was incomplete cleft lip. And on the 17th of January last year, what year are we in now? 24, 23. At 6 months old, he had his lip closed at the Birmingham Children's Hospital by Miss Ecklin and her team. I still and will always remember that day so clearly. The first 6 months of Harry's life, you just fall in love with this beautiful, unique smile, and you see it every day, and it just becomes part of them. I loved how wide it would go when he smiled, how his whole face would light up, and as surgery approached, apart from the normal common fears that I'm sure every parent would have about pain relief, about them being put to sleep, all of that stuff, all of those sort of quick things. I also had what I thought at the time were quite selfish anxieties as well. Would he look majorly different? Would I love his forever smile as much as his birth smile? Would he still feel like my baby boy? And the one that really played on my mind a lot was, is this surgery necessary? Am I putting him through something because of society? Because people may look, people may comment. And deep down, I knew it was the right thing to do, but it surely didn't make coming to terms with that surgery any easier. So surgery day came and we took him to theatre, and we'd actually had a really calm day, a calm morning, despite the lack of food, and he was weaned at that point. The lack of food, the lack of milk, which we all get a little bit hungry, don't we? And a 6 month old especially hungry. We sort of used the sensory room, and he was really quite calm. Almost like I think he knew something was going on that day. So it was quite a nice morning despite what we were going for. We left the hospital after we took him down to surgery, and we went and got some food. Something that I said I'd never do. I'd never leave the hospital. I'm going to be there when he goes down till he comes back, because if I'm there, nothing can happen. And actually, when Harry came back from surgery, I did not leave that hospital. So going out while he was in surgery was a huge advantage, because I got a bit of food, bit of fresh air. You know, hospitals are quite stifling anyway, so it was really quite a good idea. My husband just wanted an overpriced burger from Birmingham, so I'm pretty sure that's why he dragged me there. So after we went and had food, we went back up to the ward to wait for Harry. We weren't allowed in the recovery room. We had to sit and wait by his bedside, which obviously felt like 84 years for him coming back after surgery. And when he came back up, I remember just grabbing him from the nurses and just cuddling him, holding him in my arms. And I think I must have sat there for about an hour before I looked at him properly, before I really did look, because it was a fear of mine seeing that first look of surgery. You know, he was quite swollen. There was still a little bit of blood. So it was a bit of a shock to me. But on the whole, I think I just felt he's back in my arms, he's safe, nothing can hurt him now. You know, I was quite calm, and I knew that he wouldn't look like that the next day and the next day and the next day. It was just, you know, just after surgery. So over the next few days, I remember looking at Harry and seeing a difference in how he looked. I did feel sad. I felt very emotional. I was very teary, and that maybe I'd done the wrong thing. My husband had a different view. He didn't really see that much of a difference in Harry's look. He still saw his eyes, and you know, it was still, he's still our boy. So we did have very different experiences of that. And even though I absolutely adored Harry, I just really missed that smile. I really struggled with letting go of that smile, that I'll never see that smile again. You know, it's gone forever, apart from in photos. So we stayed at home on our own. We didn't have any visitors apart from my mum, who came to help. We just wanted to give Harry time to recover. We wanted to recover ourselves, give ourselves to get used to him, to be able to, well, not cry if someone looked at me funny. You know, I was very, very emotional because, you know, I was still 6 months after giving birth. So hormones were through the roof. And then one day we took him out into town. It was 2 weeks after his surgery, and I was pushing him in the pushchair. And I looked down at him, and he just gave me this smile, and his eyes glistened and his nose wrinkled, something which he'd never done before, because obviously he couldn't wrinkle his nose before. And I still get quite emotional talking about it. It's still an emotional time. I've just had another baby, so my hormones are still through the roof. And I can't really describe that feeling, but in that moment, I just remember my heart bursting, and I just stood in the middle of town and I just cried and I sobbed for about 5 minutes. But that was the moment. That was the moment I fell in love with his forever smile. And even though I was missing his forever smile, his birth smile, you know, it was just that. It was like when you get given your baby for the first time, if that makes sense. You get that over sense, you know, over feeling. So, you know, over the weeks I was still struggling. So I decided to use the CLAPA service, the counselling service that they provide, to try and work through what I realised very soon was the grieving process. I was very much going through that process again, like I did when we had his cleft diagnosis. And that service was just invaluable. And my counsellor was my saviour at that point. You know, she really did help me get through that process easily. Not easily, but as quickly as possible. So now 18 months on, Harry is doing amazing. He's healed beautifully. There are some changes in his lip and his nostril. His nostril has come down a little bit. His scar is protruding a little bit, but he's a growing boy. He's only 2. And I was told very early on, you know, don't expect to see his real forever smile for a couple of years while the healing process takes. I'm now at the stage where I can talk about it, despite a few, you know, glittery eyes, bit of dust in the air. I can talk about the before feelings of surgery without getting upset. I get emotional, but not an upset emotional. And I'm also starting to show Harry pictures of himself before his surgery. I think it's important to show him that his cleft is nothing to be ashamed of. We are not hiding it. It's not a secret. It is part of him. It's his journey. His cleft won't define him, but he will grow up being very proud of his start, being very proud of his cleft. He is my 1 in 700, and I just want him to know how brave he was and continues to be. My advice to any other parents would be just to trust your feelings. Go with however you feel after surgery. There is no right or wrong way. Even in our household, there was different feelings, and we're husband and wife, mum and dad, you know, everybody is different. Get a good support for the night of surgery. You will not sleep, and there is only so much Netflix anybody can watch in a night. So have that person on the end of the phone that you can message, call when those times get tough. Take lots of photos. I'm sure you've all been told to take lots of photos before and after, and mainly just to be kind to yourself. Our 7 and 100 babies won't remember this time. They'll know from photos and from stories that we give them. It is more stressful for us parents. We're the ones that go through the emotions. So just make sure that you look after yourself and have plenty of food in the freezer, because you probably won't get much sleep a few days afterwards. So that's it from me. That's sort of Harry's / our journey. I hope it's helped a little bit. So I will pass you back on to the ladies.
Okay,
Thank you,
great.
Kate.
Can I just say, honestly, I think you're doing a brilliant job in showing and taking photos of him beforehand, because I think obviously I was born back in the 90s, and I don't think my parents took as many of me, so I didn't really see myself any differently until I was probably around 6 or 7, and that's when I realized, oh, there was something different with me. So yeah, definitely think it's a good idea to show them as early as possible to understand, what they've gone through and process, because I think even now I still process it even now. But take it from me, someone who's gone through the actual surgeries, and we're resilient beings, so honestly, he will be okay.
Lovely, thank you.
And we've had a comment, Kate, from someone that's watching, and they said, "Thank you, Kate, for the honest experience. It's nice to hear other parents who have been in the same boat. Harry's a lucky boy."
Oh, thank you very much. See?
We'll be blubbing. So we've got some more questions. How long is recovery from ABG, and how long will I need to be off school?
So in the Northwest, we would advise 2 weeks off school, and staying off contact sport for about 6 weeks. And one of the things that we do say to the children, because obviously they're in school and they can't go out and play or football, especially for the boys, is to get a playground buddy who will maybe stay in with you while the others are out, to stop you knocking that hip or your face, or ask the teachers to sort of 5 minutes before playtime go out with your buddy, get some fresh air, have that little bit of a break, and just from the classroom. Recovery, so I don't know, a soft diet, like not as, doesn't have to be as soft, I don't think, as the babies, but avoid anything that you have to really chew or anything crunchy that might damage the sight. And again, drinking some water after your food to help clear the area, and then follow your advice from your we have a dental hygienist over on our side, and she gives out the advice about the mouthwashes and baby toothbrushes and just cleaning around the area gently. Just take the advice of your local team.
Great. Patricia, is there anything you want to add to that, or?
No, that's 100%. Yeah, that's probably keeping your teeth clean, as Louise is saying at the end. That's soft, small baby brush. And
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, the next question I think we've kind of answered already. Is there anything I can and can't eat after ABG surgery? I can't remember my own experience, to be honest with you. It's quite a while ago now, a good 20 years. So I would probably say definitely just, try and eat things that you're familiar with. Definitely familiar in terms of soft palates, obviously, but not anything too crunchy, like you said already. I'm not sure if there's anything you can add to that, really, guys.
Yeah, you just nothing that you're really having to bite hard into, because then you'll be putting stress across where the bone graft is, and nothing that's going to poke up into the little line of sutures, and they may well run along the upper inside of your lip, so you're keeping away from anything that's too sharp.
Okay, and then Lucy is going to share her personal story with us all. So thank you very much.
Hi everyone, so I'm Lucy, I'm 20 years old and I was born with a unilateral cleft lip and palate. I've had about 7 surgeries, 4 major, 3 minor surgeries, mainly orthodontic ones, the minor ones, just to get everything in order and to get my teeth as nice and shiny and straight as they are now. So I had my lip repair and then my palate repair when I was very young, and obviously I can't remember those, and anything I have heard about them has been from my parents. The first surgery I can remember was when I had my palate re-repaired when I was 4. And I was under the treatment of the South Thames Cleft Service, so I had all of my surgeries at Everleen Children's Hospital. And my first sort of memory of surgery, I guess, is walking along Westminster Bridge at sort of 4 o'clock in the morning from the tube station and looking through sort of the little gaps in the bridge and it being very dark. And unfortunately, it was a funny coincidence. It's actually happened twice, both with my palate re-repair and my ABG surgery, was that they were both on my brother's birthday, so I overshadowed him ever so slightly. But I remember my palate re-repair and sort of just sitting in the hospital, watching the telly and having phone calls with my grandparents and things like that. Nothing too much to do with the actual surgery there, but more just sort of very vague memories that have also been pieced together with some photos I've got of me sort of dancing around before surgery in my little hospital gown, which is quite sweet, and then videos of photos rather of afterwards where I've been sat in bed looking very sorry for myself and very groggy and a little bit swollen. There's one with me with a bottle of Sprite that then my dad somehow had the Sprite and he was fast asleep, which I'm sure my mum wasn't too happy about. So that was my first sort of memory of surgery. My ABG surgery happened when I was 10, so again sort of 2013, so about just over 10 years ago now. And that was the main one I can remember, sort of the feeling of not being able to eat or drink before surgery, and then going in the morning and seeing all these people and meeting up with my surgeon, and my orthodontist was there as well. And having sort of the line drawn on my hip where they were going to take the bone out as well, and just people sort of talking me through what that was going to be like. And I remember going to the school that they had at the hospital. I went there a few times. I loved getting my attendance mark for going and doing some colouring in. That was always a little bit of a win. And every single surgery I had, even up to when I was about 12, 13, I took my stuffed polar bear, who is called Polar Bear because I couldn't think of a better name for him when I was about 2. Him always coming in to almost into the operating room with me. For my bone graft surgery, they actually gave him a little oxygen mask and put little pads on him, so he had a little bit of sticky residue on him afterwards, sort of to remind me of that, which I always sort of keep as quite a fond memory actually. And then obviously waking up after surgery, I always say is the best sleep I've ever had. Sort of this waking up and being like, I don't know where I am, but I feel very well rested. And then waking up and being obviously a little bit sore, and struggling to move a little bit with my hip, but I'm sure that's very normal. And then I remember coming home and again being off school for about 2 weeks. Soft food diet, so all I really ate was tomato soup and egg mayonnaise and Neapolitan ice cream. So now I can't really eat tomato soup because I ate it that much, but it didn't put me off the ice cream. I still eat the ice cream quite a lot. So that's always a fond memory as well. That I hold of that every time I see some sort of Neapolitan ice cream. I'm like, that's what I ate after my surgery. I also remember sort of being sat on my sofa at home, in my pajamas, watching sort of Homes Under the Hammer or whatever was on daytime TV at that point, and almost sort of feeling, because you have some sort of stitches that fall out, and so I remember being like, oh, that's and then almost, it sounds a bit disgusting, but almost accumulating a little pile of them on the arm of the sofa, and my mum would come in and be like, why have you put all those there? But it was just one of those things. It was really weird to sort of feel that your stitches were sort of falling out. So that was my bone graft, and actually I didn't find it too scary at the time. I had the same surgeon throughout all of my surgeries and also the same team, so I felt really familiar with it. And I think growing up, from a very young age, sort of being used to a hospital environment, understanding sort of why you're going in and having all these surgeries, feeling a little bit special as well, because I got 2 weeks off school and I got a very big get well soon card from all of my class, which was very sweet. And then as I grew up and sort of had a lot more orthodontic focused surgeries, again going up just for the day, and again getting logged in for attendance for going in and sort of just playing about with some other kids who were waiting for their surgeries and things like that. I got an email from my head of year when I was in year 7 saying, "Well done for going to school when you were in the hospital." And I thought, well, I was there for half an hour with my magic cream on my hands waiting for surgery to happen. So all of my experiences with surgery have been very positive, and I've obviously been really well supported, particularly by my mum, who's obviously been there the whole way through. And as I was her first, and I would argue best child, and the only one born with the cleft, my brother wasn't born with the cleft, so that's he's not as special as I am, is what I always say. But she'd tell me stories of how, I think it was a few questions ago actually, about things that you do to sort of heal the scar a bit better, and she'd tell me that she'd sit night after night after night just massaging it gently with Vaseline. And that's what I give her credit for meaning that my scar is not so obvious now, and it sort of blends in quite nicely. And she'll say that was for her tireless hours of massaging Vaseline into it. So that's my sort of surgery story. But I think in terms of being, again, 1 in 700 and growing up with that, it's been such a special journey for me. Obviously, it doesn't come without its difficulties at times. But I've been really lucky that I've been involved with CLAPA all sort of through my childhood. And particularly meeting other young people when I was moving into secondary school, through CLAPA, and going to events and things like that, and meeting other young people who look the same. Meaning that you don't need to have that conversation because you've all got that one thing in common, and it's still something now as an adult I find really, really valuable and really, really lovely. And I almost get this little warm feeling whenever I meet another person who has a cleft, and that I can go, "Oh my goodness, we're the same." That's so exciting. But I think for any sort of parents who might be watching this a little bit concerned about, what it's going to be like for their children growing up, I think it makes you really resilient and independent, and you grow up in this environment, often, taking trips every 6 weeks up to the hospital and missing out on school, which can be hard when you're not the one getting the attendance awards and things like that. But knowing that as you grow up and you go through all of these sort of difficult things. I mean, I had braces for 5 years. I had a bridge put in just before COVID. And I wasn't officially sort of discharged until December just gone. Growing up with a cleft, actually, it's almost like my superpower, I guess, is how I see it. It's this sort of special club I'm a part of that not many people I meet on a daily basis are. And it's really nice to feel like you've got that something special, something unique about you. And like I say, it does make you more confident. I got to go up to hospital and chat to all these great people and meet other young people and adults now with cleft as well. And I think it's a difficult journey, but I'm sat here as a 20-year-old, and I love to talk about it, is all I really talk about sometimes, and people are probably sick of hearing it. But, I think, as Kate said as well, trust your gut in terms of what your child needs, because you know them the best. And I can say with absolute certainty that the clinicians around you are going to just be there to support you through everything. And I know that I felt very well supported by all of my team as I've grown up with them. And they've watched me grow up, and it's all been quite an emotional experience, actually. But it's one of those things, you can't change it, I always say, and you shouldn't want to, you don't have to.
Mhm.
It is who you are. And that's why I'm here now and able to talk about it with a big beaming smile on my face at all times, because it's just something I'm really, really proud of.
Lucy, that was amazing. Knowing that Reese is 2 and knowing that he's going to grow up and go for all them surgeries made me quite emotional.
Oh.
But you are right, they are superheroes. Like, you are a superhero. And that's exactly what I say to Reese, like he's my superhero. And just to know that you've gone through it and look at you now, like you're amazing. And the fact that you're letting every other parent know that everything's going to be fine. And I think that was amazing to hear. So thank you.
Oh,
From a
thank you.
Yeah, 100%. And can I just say, I really resonate with you, Lucy, because although I met you when you were a lot younger at one of the events, I had a very similar story, you know, with the teddy bear, and I had that in surgery with me throughout my whole experience, and pretty much, I just have to say, amazing thank you to the nurses as well, because they were so lovely. Every single time, especially as a child, they just made it feel like you were going off on not just a scary adventure, but kind of an adventure, you know, and that they were going to be there at the end, and there with a smile, and I just, so for me, some of the most warming memories of after the surgery, and being able to remember the special treatment, I guess you would call it, that you get from the nurses. I think I pretty much, a few times I had double ice cream in the surgery, after post surgery, which I loved, which I thought was brilliant. But that was before Great Ormond Street, I believe. So yeah, no, I loved it. So I think, thank you for sharing your story, Lucy. I think it's really important.
Thank you for letting me share it. And yeah, like I say, parents, especially my mum, has been the biggest rock in my life for all sorts of reasons, not just cleft related. And you know, having that supportive environment around you is all you can need. And CLAPA as well have just been the best thing for a young person like me to grow up with, all of that resource and all of those opportunities and things like this that we get to do to make people feel like it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be absolutely fine. You have absolutely nothing to worry about.
I agree. And I guess our parents as well, they don't know how we're going to kind of understand how much that they were really there for us until we're a bit more, well, when we're older, we understand just how much of the sacrifices they were making, you know, taking time off of work, take us to appointments. And obviously now I think it's really made my bond with my parents really, really strong. And it's, you know, very hard to break because we went through that all together almost. So Michelle, yeah, we got all that to come.
It's a journey, but it's a amazing one and a rewarding one.
And those conversations you'll get to have when your children grow up. I look back on it now with my mum, and I'm able to have those conversations now where I didn't understand when I was younger exactly what was going on. I just knew I just had to. But like you say, Stav, that bond that I've almost got with her now, knowing how much she gave up as well. And it wasn't just my journey, it was our journey, and we did it all together. I mean, she was doing it since before I was born. So, you know, she was the original person on the journey. But yeah, that relationship never really goes away. It just grows stronger over time. And that's why it's so important to have your mum and your dad and all of your family around you looking after you. But yeah, thanks for letting me share my story, everybody.
Well, thank you. We have another question. It's, does the length of stay vary post-op for operations as an adult?
I would say yes, just from my own experience, but Patricia?
Yeah, it does, but probably you're going to be falling much more into the adult system where the pressure on beds is quite high. So it's usually unlikely that most, you know, I can't really think of anything in cleft that should mean more than a one-night stay unless there was a particular problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think I only ever stayed possibly one night in the actual hospitals, even as an adult. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I think the next question that we have here is, can I expect to be home the same day? Very similar to the previous question, or stay overnight?
Yeah, so again, in the adults world, a lot of things are done routinely as day cases, and there's much more pressure to do that as a day case in the adult hospital setting nowadays.
Yeah, does that include rhinoplasty? Any aftercare that they can expect after the operation? Will they need to return for checkups?
Yeah, so again, your surgeon should be the main source of info for that, and some of that will depend on the technique that they use. So if they're using bone graft or cartilage graft or perhaps some other biomaterial, all those things make a difference to how sore you are, how you look after donor areas, perhaps. It may even depend on whether they're using what they're using for packing in the nose. So there are some nice modern things you can use that just dissolve, as opposed to the old days when you had to have packing that was taken out the morning after. So a lot of these things have got better, I think, and are less intrusive. But it can, even with the same surgeon, slightly different things that they're trying to correct may mean that there are slight differences in your aftercare.
Thank you. We've got another question. It says, what do you recommend I eat after jaw surgery? And how long should it take on average for swelling to go down after jaw surgery?
Yeah, I mean, I technically I don't do the orthognathic surgery, but certainly in my training, looked after people. It's back to that old chestnut of soft diet. It's you depends on, again, it might depend a little bit on whether they've had to operate on both upper and lower jaw, whether they've put elastics in there to try and hold things together. But if you sort of think back to basic principles, you've really got a broken jaw, and therefore you can't exert too much stress on it. So you don't want to be biting into hard things. So it's soft, and be guided by what you feel like as well. But as long as it's a reasonably soft diet. Swelling's a little bit variable. Some people will swell more than others, and again, it can depend how much of an advancement they've done. But it's not awful swelling. You know, it's the sort of swelling that you and your family will notice more than somebody like the surgeon or people looking after you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've actually had the jaw surgery a good 10 years ago now, and I all I remember was scrambled egg. I literally lived on scrambled egg, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I think. I'll be honest, my appetite really shrunk within that first month, just because I just couldn't sit there. And by the time I'd finished a plate of food, which was always quite a small plate, I was exhausted. So I just literally just wanted to do nothing but sleep for most of the day, particularly that first week. In terms of swelling, from what I remember, I think it kind of got worse before it got better. So I remember the first couple of weeks, it was kind of gradually just more bruising and things around the eyes as to where the jaw was broken. But yeah, all I can say is a lot of scrambled egg, a lot of mashed potato, and soups. Yes and no, but I felt like soup were a little bit difficult for me to kind of slurp as well, because I couldn't actually use a straw. I had to kind of reteach myself actually how to almost eat and even talk at one point. It was very difficult because your jaw is very sewn shut for the first month in particular. But you know, I mean, it was something that I don't regret. I'm very happy that I did go through with it. I went back and forth for a long time on that one, because when you hear, you know, they're going to break your jaw, it's quite a big, scary thing to go through. But trust me when I say it's 100% the best thing that you can do if you're offered the operation. I would say to take it and just know that the healing process is different for everyone, but it will look good in the end, I promise.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of people lose some weight.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I was quite worried actually, because I was already quite small, so I was like, oh God. But trust me, once you get your strength back and you want to eat everything again, I was eating steak and chips. I was having McDonald's. I was very happy to eat anything that I could. And even now, actually, to this day, I'm like, I can't eat anything soft. I don't want it in my diet. I don't want to look at it. And so I completely understand. But yeah, I think definitely definitely go through with it if you can and if you have the strength to. But take it from me, it's not easy, but you'll get there for sure. Okay, last question I have here, relating to scars. How long will the scar be red for after my lip revision? And how long until I see my forever scar? And what can I do to help the scar healing? I think we've kind of touched on this already.
Yeah, the redness can be variable. So I usually tell people that it's going to look its worst at about 3 months, and that will be when it's most red. Some people, that redness is very mild and it almost disappears in 6 months, and it comes back if the kid's very cold or hot or has a tantrum. You see the redness again, because what you're looking at are new blood vessels, and they fill up with any kind of emotion or hot and cold. They don't react the same as the rest of you. But some people do stay redder for longer. So you do sometimes see people whose scars are pretty red even a year or so after.
Yeah, I'm
but
like that. Well, I think it depends on the skin tone as well. I think it depends on, you know, your melanin and things like that.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're lucky to have sort of Mediterranean olive skin, you are already in the group that are going to scar better than others. And if you're very kind of pale Celtic freckly, you're going to have redder scars for longer.
Yeah, agreed.
And we do have one more question in the chat. It is the age of ABG surgery more likely to be age 10 rather than age 8?
I think it usually is later, yeah. You know, they start assessing, the orthodontists are the people who hold the keys to the exact date, and they start assessing around about 7.5, because they're trying not to catch anyone who's got very early development. So yeah, most people it's a little bit later, so probably most of them it's closer to 10 or even a little later.
Yeah, I think I was 10.
Different. Everyone's different.
Yeah. I was in year 6, so I must have been around 10 or 11, definitely.
Oh, thank you very much, everyone. Lucy, there is a comment for you saying thank you so much for providing your experience. And I think we have done all of the questions. So that is all we have time for tonight. And we would appreciate any feedback, like we gratefully receive it. And there will be a link in the chat if you'd like to do that.
Amazing. And I just have so many thank yous to really give out tonight. Firstly, thank you so much to Louise and Patricia, just for giving up your time this evening and also just giving your advice. It's great wisdom, I'm sure, for a lot of parents with children who are going through this, and adults as well. It's hugely appreciated, of course, and I'm sure, like I said, everyone is watching feeling the same way. And thank you to Kate and Lucy, who kindly shared their personal stories with us. Always great to hear a personal story from both parent and children or child / adults going through the same experiences. Thank you as well to everyone who's joined us online, and to those who are watching in the recording. We thank you guys so much. This video will be available on CLAPA's Facebook page, of course, straight away. And a subtitled version will be posted on the CLAPA YouTube page as soon as possible. And of course, a big thank you to you, Michelle, for taking your time out to volunteer as a host this evening.
And thank you to you as well. Can we also say a thank you to our funders, the National Lottery Community Fund and Smile Train? I think we can all agree this is such a informative evening for everybody, and they can look back on it and cry like me if you like.
It's been therapy. A
bit therapy. But yeah, I think it's been a great evening. And if we haven't had any chance to answer your questions, then we're more happy for you to email CLAPA. The email is info@clapa.com. Well, this CLAPA staff are amazing, so we can help you with anything you need. And we hope you've enjoyed this Q&A.
Yeah,
and
thanks, guys.
We've got loads of online events in our website that you can have a look if you want to attend them in the future. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you all have a lovely week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.